welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this. I post new videos every single Sunday and Wednesday, and subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color and tons of free LCSW test prep. It is March 19th as I film this video, and so that means it is really fastly approaching for the social work study with Melissa release. It will be available for purchase March 31st, and I have the link in the description box if you're interested. The way that I have it formatted is very similar to the way that I have the teaching style for a lot of my videos. The only difference is there's going to be tons of information that that's not available on my current channel, including a complete study guide, a complete 170 mock exam with a rationale walkthrough after you actually complete the test, and a bunch of videos that are only going to be accessible to those that purchase the program. So definitely take a look down below, and we're going to go ahead and get into the content of today's video. And the video today was requested by somebody to go into detail about cyclothymia and dysthymia, because they seem like they have some similar characteristics in terms of time frames. So time frames can sometimes get us a little bit confused. So I'm going to go over the major characteristics, and then we're going to look at a test prep question. And if you have any video suggestions on test prep information, or just something that you want to know about mental health information, leave a comment in any of my videos and I will take a look, because I have a couple of different requests right now. I think I have 2 or 3 on the lineup, so I'm going to do those, and then I will add others as they come in if that's something that will be helpful to you. But really all of the thorough information is going to be on that social work study program. So let's go ahead, without further ado, get into the content of this video. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about cyclothymia versus dysthymia. So I wanted to make sure that you have some very basic characteristics of each. One of the things that you probably already know is the time frame. So with cyclothymia and dysthymia, the time frame is a 2-year history. So both of these diagnoses, or the symptoms and criteria of these diagnoses, have to be present for at least a minimum of 2 years. And just in a nutshell, they are both less severe forms of other major diagnoses. So let's go ahead and start off with cyclothymia. So cyclothymia, again, it requires a minimum 2-year history of criteria and symptoms. And basically, it's not as quite hypomanic and not as depressive as we see in the bipolar disorders. So bipolar 1, like we've talked about before in my other video, is a kind of defined by this manic depression. So the mania is really the primary characteristic here. And during the manic episodes, people with bipolar 1 usually are really dealing with severe different behaviors that really impacts the quality of their life. And then with bipolar 2, a person has to have at least one episode of a past hypomania, a less severe form of mania, and then a current or past major depression. So definitely take a look at my bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2 video, because I'm going to go more into detail in that video. And I've already posted that. It's on my channel, so take a look at that. So really what we're saying here is cyclothymia is a very lesser form of bipolar. So it doesn't have to meet those major criteria, the full-on mania or the full-on depressive symptoms, but really it's going to be a minimum 2-year history of not so much hypomania and not such severe depression, but there may be some sort of symptoms of mania and depression. So like it says on here, it's characterized by episodes of euphoria and depression. So the euphoria may have not developed into full-blown mania. And as we know, euphoria is, a very high sort of mood, being really like elevated and happy. And then, somebody can go onto treatments for this, and somebody will be more likely to develop or be at risk for having bipolar later in life. So this is not as a severe form. So if we're looking at dysthymia now, dysthymia is a lesser form of depression. Or major depressive disorder. So this actually used to be called, this was a previous name. Dysthymia disorder is actually now called persistent depressive disorder in the DSM. So sometimes you may hear clinicians still refer to it as dysthymia or dysthymic disorder, just because it's recently changed. And so sometimes people will use that, and persistent depressive disorder pretty interchangeably. This is a fairly new change. So just keep that in mind so you don't get confused. If you hear somebody say dysthymia or persistent depressive disorder, it's the same thing. So with this, again, this has to be around for 2 years at least. So that's the common thing that's going on with these two diagnoses, with cyclothymia and dysthymia. That may cause a little bit of confusion because you hear there are lesser severe forms of the diagnoses, and it's 2 years to meet the criteria. And it's like when you hear that and you hear these two sorts of names that sound very similar, it's like, okay, well, what's the difference? So 2 years for this. And with persistent depressive disorder or dysthymia, it includes major depressive disorder that has lasted for 2 or more years, and a lower grade form of depression. So what we know about major depressive disorder, which I've talked about before, is that it's a clinical depression involves periods of extreme sadness, hopelessness, and definitely affects the biopsychosocial. With dysthymia or with persistent depressive disorder, it's lower and mild phases of depression, and it can develop, and you can be at risk to developing severe chronic major depressive disorder over time. And then treatments include therapy and some sort of psychotropic like an antidepressant. So again, this major similarities for both of these is the 2-year minimum. And the other similarity is that they both are a lesser form with milder episodes of the criteria and symptoms of other diagnoses. And the major differences is that cyclothymia is more of a milder form of bipolar, while dysthymia or persistent depressive disorder is a milder form of major depressive disorder. So those are the major sorts of similarities and differences. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the LCSW test prep question. So pause here and test your ability if you want to do that, and then check back in. Jane is referred to a therapist to treat her fluctuating mood for the past 4 years. She experiences feeling low mood in a given month, but then experiences a lot of energy and then goes shopping in another given month. Janie's likely diagnosis is bipolar. So option A, bipolar 1. So again, this is characterized by a manic depression, and the mania is like this really inflated mood and energy and activity, and they just are really engaged in activities that can result in severe sorts of consequences for them. So that doesn't necessarily seem like what's going on here, because it doesn't seem that severe. So let's look at the other options. Option B, bipolar 2. So again, with bipolar 2, somebody has to have at least one episode of mania in the past and a less severe episode or current major depressive sort of criteria, but no history of any manic episode. Um, and hypomania, again, is like a lesser form of mania. So that doesn't seem like what is going on because she's experiencing low mood and a lot of energy, but it doesn't seem like there's nothing in the vignette that says that these are affecting her quite yet to the point where she's unable to kind of manage symptoms from day-to-day life. Option C, persistent depressive disorder or dysthymia. So like we've talked about earlier, this is really characterized by some chronic low mood concerns, a lower grade of depression, but there is obviously something else going on in this vignette, which leads us to option D. So she is experiencing a lot of energy and goes shopping in another given month. So there's 4 years of her mood fluctuating. So again, it's a 2-year criteria minimum. And because of the 2 years and the symptoms aren't as severe as bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, and she is experiencing kind of both the inflated mood and then the low mood, we would say that this is cyclothymia. So option D is going to be your answer. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button again for more content. Until next time, managing mental health matters.